All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at Robert C. Martin's clean architecture because, let's be honest, it tackles a problem that pretty much every single one of us has run into in software development. You know the story, right? You kick off a brand new project, the energy is just electric, features are getting pushed out like crazy, and then you fast forward a year, maybe two, and that same project feels like you're trying to run through quicksand. So what on earth is going on here? So here's the typical knee-jerk reaction from management, and it's fascinating. This case study from the book shows that as a project starts to bog down, what do? They just throw more and more developers at it. The team size just goes through the roof. I mean, more people should equal more speed, shouldn't it? Well, as it turns out, no, not at all. Look at this. Even with all those extra people on the team, the actual output, the amount of new, valuable code, it just completely flatlines. The team is getting bigger and bigger, but the project is barely inching forward. It's wild. And this chart right here shows the terrifying result of all that. The cost to get just one new feature out the door absolutely skyrockets. We're talking something like 40 times more expensive by the 8th release. This is what happens when your business logic gets all tangled up with things like frameworks and databases. It's a death spiral that can literally kill a company. And if you look at it from the developer side, it's an absolute nightmare. They're working harder than ever, putting in those long hours, but all their brainpower is being sucked away from building cool new things and instead goes into just fighting the existing system. They're totally consumed by managing the mess. So how does a project even get this messy in the first place? Well, it usually starts with a very tempting, very common little lie. The old story of the tortoise and the hare actually has a lot to teach us about this. In the software world, the hare is that team that's always saying, we have to get to market first. Don't worry, we'll go back and clean it up later. It's this total overconfidence. The tortoise, on the other hand, knows that making a mess right now just guarantees you're going to be slower down the road. And this is the absolute key takeaway. It's not a trade-off. Writing messy code doesn't actually make you faster now and slower later. No. The truth is, making a mess is always slower than staying clean, even from day one. To think otherwise is frankly just a mistake. Okay, so if making a mess is the enemy, how do we stay clean? Well, the big secret lies in really understanding the difference between two key ideas, policy and details. Think of it like this. Policy is the stuff that actually makes the business money. It's the core logic, the secret sauce. Details? That's everything else. The database, the web framework you're using, the UI, these are just tools, mechanisms to get data to and from the policy. They are not the system itself. Let's make this really concrete. Calculating the interest on a loan, that's policy. It's a core business rule. But the specific Oracle database you happen to store it in, that's a detail. That fancy React framework you're using, just a detail. And get this, even the web itself is just an I/O device. It's a detail. So the number one job of a good software architect is to build a solid wall between these two things. The really valuable policy should have zero knowledge of the low-level details. Your business rules shouldn't know or care if they're being displayed on a website or sent by a fax machine. Now, that sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually build that wall? Turns out, it all boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful rule. First, you have to think about your system in layers, kind of like an onion. Right at the center, in the core, you've got your entities. These are your highest level business rules. Wrapped around that are the use cases, which is your application-specific logic. Further out, you have interface adapters that translate data. And then on the very, very outside, you have all the details, the database, the UI, all the frameworks. And here it is. Here's the rule that makes the whole thing work. The dependency rule. All of your source code dependencies must point inwards. So the UI can know about the use cases, but the use cases can never ever know about the UI. The core business rules at the center know absolutely nothing about the layers outside of them. And look, this isn't just some academic theory. On a real project called Fitness, the team put off choosing a database for over a year. They just used fakes and mocks. When a customer finally said they needed MySQL support, guess what? They were able to plug it in a single day. Why? Because the architecture was clean. The core policy didn't have to change one bit. So what's the big lesson in all of this? What's the main takeaway? It's really about fundamentally changing how we think about the purpose of architecture. It's about what your software screams when someone looks at it for the first time. I absolutely love this quote. Think about it. When you look at the blueprints for a house, they don't scream, "This is a drywall and wood frame structure." They scream, "This is a home with bedrooms and a kitchen." Your software architecture should do the exact same thing. So if a new developer joins your team and they look at the top-level folders in your project and their first thought is, okay, this is a Spring application, then your architecture is screaming about details. But if they look at it and think, oh, I see, this is a healthcare inventory system, now your architecture is screaming about its real purpose, its policy. And that brings us full circle, right back to the beginning. There's a reason we call it software. It's supposed to be soft, right? Malleable, easy to change. A good architecture, at the end of the day, is simply one that preserves that softness for the life of the project. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time you're at work, pull up your main project. Take a good hard look at that top-level directory structure. What does it scream? Does it scream about its purpose, or does it scream about the tools you happen to use to build it? The answer to that question, well, it tells you pretty much everything you need to know.